One evening during the blessed month of Ramadan, a Christian priest entered a large hall where people had gathered to listen to the Quran. The atmosphere was calm, filled with anticipation as the reciters prepared to begin. The audience fell silent, their hearts ready to hear the words of Allah. The priest sat quietly in the front row. His presence surprised many, but he had come not to argue, not to debate, but simply to listen. For years he had studied the Bible, preached to his community, and guided his people. Yet deep inside he carried questions he could never answer. Tonight, without telling anyone, he hoped to find something that would bring peace to his heart. The first reciter, Hamed Shakernejad, began with verses from Surah Aal-Imran. His voice rose beautifully. And mention when the angels said, "O Mary, indeed Allah has chosen you and purified you and chosen you above the women of the worlds. O Mary, be devoutly obedient to your Lord and prostrate and bow with those who bow in prayer." The priest closed his eyes. He had read about Mary countless times in the Bible. She was honored, revered, beloved. But here in the Quran he heard something even deeper. Mary described as chosen above all women of the world. The clarity, the respect, the purity in these words touched him. He whispered to himself, "This sounds familiar, yet it carries a truth I have never heard expressed this way." The next reciter, Sayyid al-Hassanin, continued with another passage. "You will surely find the most intense in animosity toward the believers to be the Jews and those who associate others with Allah. And you will find the nearest of them in affection to the believers those who say, 'We are Christians.' That is because among them are priests and monks, and because they are not arrogant." The priest's heart shook. The Quran spoke of Christians and of priests like him, and it did not speak with hostility. As he had been told, it acknowledged sincerity, humility, devotion. He thought, is this truly how the Quran views us? With fairness, with recognition. Then came the third reciter, Ahmed Abu al-Qasimi. The atmosphere grew heavy, almost sacred, as he began reciting from Surah Maryam. So she brought him to her people, carrying him. They said, "O Mary, you have certainly done a thing unprecedented. O sister of Aaron, your father was not a man of evil, nor was your mother unchaste." So she pointed to him. They said, "How can we speak to one who is in the cradle a child?" Jesus said, "Indeed, I am the servant of Allah. He has given me the scripture and made me a prophet, and he has made me blessed wherever I am and has enjoined upon me prayer and zakah as long as I remain alive. And he has made me dutiful to my mother, and he has not made me a wretched tyrant. And peace is on me the day I was born, the day I will die, and the day I am raised alive." The priest's breath caught. His eyes filled with tears. He had never heard these words before. This was Jesus speaking, not through counsels or translations, but directly, in the words of revelation. And what did Jesus say? Not, "I am God." Not, "Worship me." But instead, "Indeed, I am the servant of Allah." The weight of those words broke him. His body trembled, his hands covered his face, and tears streamed down his cheeks. In that moment he realized that the Quran had answered the question that had haunted him for years. He whispered under his breath, "If Jesus himself says he is the servant of God, then how can I call him divine? How can I worship him instead of the one who created him?" The audience noticed his weeping, but no one disturbed him. He sat there, overwhelmed, his heart unlocking truths he had long buried. For decades he had studied theology, philosophy, and scripture. Yet here, in a few minutes of listening to the Quran, he found clarity greater than all the years of study. Later he admitted to those around him, "For the first time in my life, I felt Islam might be the true religion." These verses were not human words. They were divine. That night he left the hall with his life forever changed. He had not yet declared Islam, but his heart could no longer deny what it had witnessed. The Quran had spoken directly to him, piercing his soul with truth, leaving him trembling, humbled, and closer to the one true God than ever before. When the recitation ended, the hall remained in silence. No one moved, no one spoke. The priest sat motionless, his head lowered, tears still glistening on his cheeks. He had entered the gathering out of curiosity, but he was leaving with a heart transformed. He remembered his years inside the church, standing before his congregation, preaching doctrines he had memorized but never fully understood. He recalled the countless times he had been asked difficult questions by young believers, questions about the nature of God, about the Trinity, about why Jesus prayed if he himself was God. Each time he had given answers learned from theology books, but deep inside he knew those answers never truly satisfied his own heart. Tonight, however, the verses of the Quran had given him clarity without complication. The words were simple, pure, direct. Indeed, I am the servant of Allah. There was no mystery to solve, no philosophy to twist, no endless debate. Just truth, shining clear, undeniable. As he rose to leave the hall, several people approached him with kindness, offering water, tissues, and gentle words. They did not pressure him or argue. They only said, "May God guide your heart. May he show you the truth." Their humility touched him even more. He had expected hostility, but instead he found compassion and respect. Walking alone through the quiet streets that night, the priest looked up at the sky. The moon of Ramadan glowed brightly, casting its light upon the city. For the first time in years, he felt as though that light was also shining inside him. He whispered, "Lord, guide me. If this is your book, if this is your truth, then do not let me turn away from it." In the days that followed, he secretly began reading more of the Quran. Each chapter seemed to answer questions he had carried all his life. He read about the prophets, Noah, Abraham, Moses, and saw how their stories connected perfectly, each calling to the same truth. Worship one God without partners. He read about Jesus again and again, and each time his respect grew deeper. The Quran honored Jesus not by raising him to divinity, but by presenting him as he truly was. A noble prophet, a servant of the Almighty, a sign of God's mercy. The priest admitted to himself that his heart was no longer the same. Though he had not yet stood before his church to declare his change, inside he knew the journey had begun. That night of Ramadan was not just a coincidence, it was an invitation. And so the story of a single priest listening to Surah Maryam became more than just a passing event. It became a reminder that the words of God can reach anyone, anywhere, in any language, if only the heart is open. To this day, he describes that moment as the most powerful experience of his life. "It was as if a veil had been lifted from my eyes," he says. "I realized that truth is not always found in what we inherit, but in what God himself reveals." The Quran had spoken directly to his soul, and though the world may one day forget the details of that gathering, he will never forget the night when the voice of truth echoed in his heart.